Hello, and welcome back to the Features Talk podcast, where we are making vehicle technology simple and relevant for everyday drivers, which is all of us. All of us are everyday drivers. Well, there are people that choose not to drive, which I get it, but for the majority of the public, we are driving.
Yeah.
I am your host, Lisa Bailey. And as always, joining me is my co-host and our automotive resident product specialist, Luke Verseput. Welcome back, Luke.
Hello. Awesome to be back as always. And this is kind of an interesting bit that we're on here because we're at the cusp of completing our first ever Features First mini series.
Okay, I'm telling you.
Or I should say our Features Talk mini series. So we've had this mini series going on, and it's all been about the learning curve of software defined vehicles, the learning curve of more advanced ADAS features. And so we've kind of covered the whole process of having one of these, of having a car like this from before you have it, the point of sale, the first delivery, and then as you're using it, it's all been about what features do we place a lot of trust in, maybe too much trust in. What other features are people not warming up to maybe as much as would be safe? So there's been a lot of great material. I'd encourage everyone to check out our previous content on that. And but this one now is going to be the conclusion of our 4-part miniseries, and this one is going to be all about the informed driver, which has kind of been the goal of this whole miniseries and this whole podcast and Lisa's entire vision for this business. So it's all
exactly.
It all comes back to, we want drivers to be more informed and to feel more comfortable with these rather admittedly fast-paced technological changes that are happening in cars.
Exactly. And I love that you said that, because today we're going to go a little bit deeper and we're going to add another layer to it, because it is all about being an informed driver. So knowing what's happening, knowing what technology you have, and knowing your responsibility with that technology. But there are two terms of a type of driver that are becoming more connected as we are progressing towards software-defined vehicles, connected vehicles, right? And that is an augmented driver and an informed driver. And as vehicles become more connected, these drivers are starting, or these driver types are starting to merge into one today. And that's what we're discussing, is the framework that an informed driver can say, okay, what can I do at that moment when I get behind the wheel that's equipped with a driver assistance system? What does that look like for me? And how can I really set myself up to be successfully as a informed and an augmented driver? And so before we get too deep into things, let's lay some basic terms down. And I want to tell you exactly what an augmented driver is. And that is so this is a human operator. You are a human and you're going to operate a vehicle, right? And your perception is situational awareness. So you are aware of your situations, and you have decision-making capabilities that are enhanced in real time by augmented reality and driver assistance systems. So you can think about this in terms of heads-up display. Okay, so heads-up display is a driver assistance system, and it is one that is developed to reduce distraction while driving. So heads-up display, it displays your speed limit. It's displaying things on your dashboard right in front of you.
On the windshield,
The windshield, exactly. Thank you, Luke. That way you can keep looking forward as you're driving. But there's some automation working in order for you to be able to actually see that. And that would make you an augmented driver. Does that make sense, Luke?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And the head-up display is a good example of that, because it's one of the things that often gets like shown. We've seen it in like sci-fi movies. Is like
Mm-hmm.
it's like the head-up display is an easy target for like media to show what a futuristic car would be like, right? Because the whole windshield, the whole windscreen becomes a
Right.
screen,
Right.
right? And it's then that's of course our cars don't do that, but we have what are essentially the building blocks of that, which is the head-up display, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all about not breaking drivers' line of sight,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Because human vision is an amazing
Mm-hmm.
thing, but we rely on line of sight,
Yes.
and which means what we can see in front of us. And yes, we have peripheral vision, but where our most optimal reaction time and quickest decision making happens is line of sight. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's about maintaining line of sight instead of looking away for
Correct.
some of those pieces of information that we might need. Even just looking down a couple inches at a gauge cluster screen, or formerly like the speedometer, the
Yeah.
dials, right? Looking down just a couple inches, I mean, it's a fraction of a second,
Mm-hmm.
but that a lot can happen and when you're moving fast
It
in a car.
really can. It
and
really can.
and that's the point of the augmented driver, and that does tie into, like you said, a driver that is informed,
Mm-hmm.
which is the whole reason we do what we do here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then an informed driver is someone who, like, if you ask them, what does this do, why does it do what it does,
Right.
they would know. It doesn't mean they're necessarily using it,
Correct.
but it means they know.
Right.
They could get the answer right on a test,
Mm-hmm.
but would they actually be using it in real life? Would they actually be an augmented driver in on the road?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's where you said that's why it's good that we're talking about that intersection, because when you think about it, another thing that we've kind of addressed, we haven't put it in this terminology, but there's a lot of augmented drivers out there that are not informed drivers,
That's right.
right? So
And
you can
yes, talk about it, Luke. Yes.
yeah, so you can be augmented by these features. Anyone who
Yes.
has ever looked down their phone at the wrong time and had automatic emergency braking slow them down, and then when they feel that happen, in that instant of panic, now they slam on the brake and an accident was prevented. That's an augmented driver.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
they may have even had the car not even knowing it had that feature.
Yes.
Anyone who's ever been kept in their lane from a distraction because they were drifting out, anyone who didn't bump into someone making a lane change because blind spot monitoring did its job, these are all augmented drivers, but not everyone knows about those features.
Correct.
So that's being uninformed. And so with the proliferation of software defined vehicles and these more advanced features becoming more common,
Mm-hmm.
it's no longer like you have to get the highest end luxury car for automatic emergency braking,
That's right. It's
because
standard now.
it's standard, right?
Yeah.
Now that all that's becoming more common, there
Mm-hmm.
is this merging of augmented drivers, actually knowing on a deeper level what their features are and how they work, along with the informed drivers actually more adopting the full usage of them.
That's right. And that flows perfectly into the term that we are going to talk about next is usage responsibility. So
This we have talked about.
yes, and it ties into exactly what we're talking about is before when cars were less connected, less, technology forward, your usage responsibility was really on how you took care of your car. It was if you have a recall, get the recall, take the maintenance of the vehicle. That was your usage responsibility. And then the techniques and the safety techniques that you learned in driver's ed behind the wheel. That was your usage responsibility, right? But now when you throw tech in there, you throw this augmented reality, the usage responsibility changes. And that's actually the third pillar in the ADAS knowledge gap that we've mapped, that it really is the precipice of this that this series sits on. And it's the driver's active role in closing the distance between owning the safety tech and being protected by it. So yes, you own it, but now you're actively being protected by it. So you are engaging now. You are engaging and you're allowing the tech to perform the way it needs to perform, especially in saving your life, right? So then that means you have a responsibility when it comes to that. So if there's a recall with ADAS, my God, get it fixed. The responsibility is a little bit, it's a little bit more riskier. Would you say, Luke, when we're thinking about that?
Yeah, it is because safety features, these advanced safety features can now be the subject of recalls here and there,
Correct.
and and that becomes an enormously important thing. And any I would say any recall is important no matter what,
Yeah,
but because the automaker wouldn't put it out if they didn't think it was important.
that's right.
Um, but when it comes to, I would say if there's a recall on, I've used this example before, but like there could be recalls over like a window switch actuator.
Mm-hmm.
Like in certain conditions and under certain circumstances, a window motor might get caught or get
Right.
stuck or something. And instead of this just being a like enormous, just like widespread service issue that like everyone reports it, and now the reputation of this car is, oh, its window doesn't roll up or down,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, okay, let's just issue the recall, put it out there, let's own it and just get it fixed.
Right.
That's now that would not be, I think, put under a like a mandatory safety recall. That I think would
Mm-hmm.
likely fall under a convenience thing. But
Mm-hmm.
if a recall goes out saying that in certain circumstances a forward collision mitigation system could either break or like throw a false positive, not just in its sensor, but actually put on the brakes when it doesn't mean to,
That's right.
or when it doesn't, or when it shouldn't, or if it just isn't, if it's just found to not be tracking properly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's an enormous thing. And
Mm-hmm.
if that recall doesn't get fixed, then guess what? The augmented driver isn't going to be so augmented, right?
Exactly. Well,
So that's I'm not trying to,
it's the truth, Lou. It is the
right.
absolute truth.
Yeah,
And
and I'm not trying to make light of the
that's
possibility
real.
of collisions happening, but like
Yes, it's real.
that's why there's the importance of augmented and informed. Like you can be augmented
Right.
by the feature, but if you're not informed about whether it needs to be worked on or not, the
That's right.
augmentation isn't going to do you much good. And the
Yes.
other thing I think that is important to talk about with the usage responsibility
Mhm.
is that the usage responsibility did go from just here's how you place hands on the wheel, here's
Yeah.
how you look over your shoulder,
Mhm.
here's how you turn the key, and even before the automatic transmission became common, here's how you move from one gear to the other, don't move to the wrong gear at the wrong speed, right?
Yep.
These were usage responsibilities, because beyond that it was just a metal box with an engine and wheels. There wasn't really any tech to it beyond that. It was
Exactly.
all everything about not only the car but also the human was purely an analog process,
Yep.
not digital, not computerized. It was just an analog process. And there can be, and has been, this misconception here and there that with the proliferation of these ADAS features, that suddenly they can do everything.
Yes.
It's like cars went from being able to do nothing to doing everything.
Yep.
And that's not the case at all. We've
That's
mentioned
right.
many times on Features Talk that the development of ADAS is all about the different gray areas that we get to along the way.
Yes.
A feature becoming improved but not perfected yet, and the little kind of growing pains along the way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's important for us to, I think, focus on the fact that there are ADAS limitations.
That's right.
And ADAS limitations is one of the things that we always want to make sure we're clear on.
Mm-hmm.
And these are boundaries that are documented by the automakers of what safety systems can and cannot do.
Yep.
Because they all have their limitations. They all have certain situations where they are designed to work optimally, and then others where they will just inherently not work optimally. And the thing is, according to the studies and many that we've cited before, nearly 2/3 of drivers want ADAS on their next vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not anyone who tries to say that like, oh, no one wants this. Well, that's objectively wrong. But
Yes.
and while it's not 100%, it's most people do want it. Most people are wanting these kinds of features, and they see the benefit.
Yes.
But for that interest to actually become safety, for it to translate into safer
Yes.
driving,
Behavior change.
yeah, to see the actual change in the behavior, there has to be consistency in the performance of the features. That's on obviously the technicians, the automakers to nail down, but
Yep.
also the driver understanding of what the limitations are.
Yes. Yes. That is so good. And you're right. We have talked about that. And that takes me back thinking about in season 2 when we had the episode with Carl Anthony, the product
Mm.
specialist episode. That was so fun.
Yeah.
And we talked about how onboarding was shifting from, simple things like pairing your Bluetooth, onboarding, like when you have the customer in front of you, they purchased this vehicle, and that conversation that you're having with them about what they've purchased. And
Yeah.
it's going from something as simple as pairing a Bluetooth to walking the customers through their feature subscriptions. Eventually it will be that. And so, Luke, from a product specialist perspective, how important is it for customers to shift from augmented to informed? And are you seeing that? Are you seeing that shift now as a product specialist, because you are working with vehicles that have advanced vehicle technologies in them? So these
Mhm.
customers have to have some level of understanding.
Yeah, I would say with the vehicles most of the vehicles I'm with now they tend to be on the higher end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not working with vehicles that would be considered opulent in any way, but these are newer vehicles with, like you said, a lot of these ADAS features standard or at least widely available.
Yeah.
And mostly standardized. So I would say, yeah, from it's going from augmented to informed, and that has become increasingly important. And as far as how important it is, well, that can run the gamut from oh, maybe the customer is just happier with, like, oh, this is easier to use than I thought, I'll leave a positive review,
Right.
all the way to the other end of the spectrum of, if they know if that onboarding is done properly, like by the product specialist, if that onboarding is done properly and they are aware of the safety features in their car, that could end up saving someone's life, right?
Yep.
Either
Yep.
by that driver you're working with, not paying attention, or in some kind of human lapse that they have in their execution of driving, or someone else's.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, that could be, now in that moment, if that kind of thing were to happen, and it doesn't happen, that's more of an extreme example, but
Yeah.
if or when that kind of thing does happen, yeah, the first thought through that person's mind right there at the instant of narrowly avoiding what could have even been a fatal accident, I'm sure the first thought going through their head isn't, wow, I'm glad Luke mentioned that one day. It's
Right.
they're probably thinking, holy, insert word, that almost just happened.
Yep.
And so it's, yeah, they don't often think, wow, the product specialist saved my life. And that's
Right.
not,
Right.
that's not what I would consider it. But yeah, that's what the onboarding process has become. And that's the potential stake out there, is that the customer just going from driving the car and not really knowing about it, and just leave the safety features defaulted on and leave it there.
Yeah.
That's better than them being off, but it's even more important that they're informed about them.
Yep.
And now the things like pairing a phone and Bluetooth almost become secondary or tertiary to that.
Exactly. That leads us right into our framework. And so I'm thinking about this from the perspective, and when we were, drafting the episode, I was thinking about, we've gotten so many questions from all types of drivers at different points in their driving journey. Some of them just purchase the vehicle and have driver assistance system. Some of them have older vehicles and don't have any driver assistance systems. And some of them have been working with driver assistance systems, but they have more advanced ones, and they've never even, thought about trying to figure out, well, why is it there, instead of just letting it, stay disengaged. And so we've come up with somewhat of a framework that anyone could use when they're thinking about driver assistance systems, and that merging of being an informed driver and then being an augmented driver. And when you think about driver assistance systems, we've had plenty of questions of, where do I even start? And
Right.
that,
I was going to say exactly that. That's been one of our whole objectives of Features Talk, is that, yeah, there's all this information out there. It's great to know it all, but then, like, as far as putting it all into practice, like, where do I start if you're not used to such a vehicle? And that's so we kind of came up with this as I would say, kind of a general suggestion.
yes,
It's this is, it's all this stuff about cars. Cars are inherently a complicated thing, and so, it's not our way as the highway.
Right.
or our way or the highway. It's nothing like that. But since we are we're around these kinds of cars, we experience these kinds of things, and each one of us is that person in the friend group that will start talking about this stuff unprompted. You
Exactly.
know, so
Exactly. And have data to prove it and everything. And
ex-
the framework is rooted in that. It's rooted in what you're saying, Luke. It's rooted in
yeah,
us, our personal experiences, but it's also rooted in all of the experts we've had on. It's rooted in all of the studies that Consumer Reports are doing about
hmm
how drivers are feeling about these technologies and not knowing where to start, you know?
exactly. And because we talk about all this stuff so much, and have talked to people in the industry who are experts in their more precise fields,
Yeah.
then yeah, we kind of wanted to bring up this general. We call it a framework, but it doesn't mean you have to follow this. It's just kind of a
Mhm.
general laying out of it all. So let's say you get a car,
Mhm.
and this could be like you said, Lisa. It could be really any time period, assuming something relatively modern,
Mhm.
right? If it's like a 60s or 70s or something, that's you're probably buying it as a collectible, right?
Right.
And so assuming something relatively modern, I would say early 2000s
Yeah.
to now. I mean, early 2000s is still that's a 20 about a 26-year-old car now. That's
Mhm.
so, but it was early 2000s where cars were still a fairly analog experience, but that was when
Right.
airbags had become mandatory. 3-point safety belts have been standard for a long time. These are not what we would consider ADAS features now, but 2000s, the early to mid 2000s, that was getting into a time where safety regulations were starting to get a stronger hold over the auto industry than they had ever done in the 90s or before.
Yep.
So, any kind of relatively modern car, let's say you get it, and what do you do in that first week? Because
Mhm.
that first week can sometimes be the like sometimes the overwhelming one, right?
Yeah.
Especially people who are getting really new cars that are loaded to the gills with features.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that we would suggest is, read the ADAS section of your owner's manual before your first highway drive, before going on the freeway.
Yep.
Now, depending on the age of the car, it might not have a feature on ADAS because it might just not have really any advanced ADAS features. That's getting into pretty old cars, but for the majority of people, there will be an ADAS section in the owner's manual
Oh yeah.
about those features. And it's important then once you're there to identify active features and passive. We've talked about active and
Yeah.
passive features before. That's been a
Yeah.
big topic of ours. And it's important to identify, especially the active safety features,
Mhm.
by their names and not just the marketing name. And I know that's something that you, especially because you obviously you compared to me, you have way more experience in like the business and corporate world. I
Yes.
mean, you're more in touch with a lot of that, and so and I mean, firsthand, marketing can be both a blessing and a curse. and
That's
so
right. That's right.
and so it's important to because every brand, we've talked about this, likes to market their safety features as a particular thing.
Yes.
Strip all that away. Just what
Yes.
is the technically correct name? It's good to know about those. And then in there, you'll also find which ones are on by default.
That's right.
And,
Exactly.
and so
That
that's
glad
a
you
good kind of first one to look at is which ones are on by default and which ones might would maybe need to be toggled on.
I love that you said that. There is a resource that was put together by AAA, SAE, Consumer Reports, and this was an effort to provide standardized naming for these driver assistance systems because drivers are getting lost in all of the marketing and they have no idea what the tech is doing. And it's like, can we just get down to this is just blind spot monitoring? It's going to monitor your blind spots. And so there is a resource, Clearing the Confusion. We have provided that for you all for this series. So you can use that
Yeah.
when you're looking at your manual and you're looking at the driver assistance systems that you have. If you're getting lost in the way that they're describing it, if you're finding it way too technical, the Clearing the Confusion resource is so good for everyone to have, honestly, in their little arsenal to be able to just go and just get it in standardized, no fluff. This is what the tech is. This is it, this is what it's going to do. It's a warning or there's an intervention because you do need to know if it's active or if it's passive and if it's on by default. These are all
Mm-hmm.
important things to know within that first drive. And there's another thing that you mentioned, Luke, that I think is very important is do this before you get on the highway. Because
Yeah.
if you do have systems that are on by default and they operate at highway speeds, they will begin to operate without informing you of anything. And so you will want to know, and it's not a jarring experience, but it can be for some if you
Mhm.
have no idea that you are going to receive some or not even some of them are intervening, but intervention or warnings that you were not aware of. So I love that you said that. And then there's also other resources that you can use. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they have a database. And if
Mhm.
you want something online, digital, I'm pretty sure your OEM, so the manufacturer of your car, I know they have a digital version of your manual. So if you're looking for something that's online, you can use that as well. And you can look at the safety ratings. That's even important.
Mhm.
Understanding the safety ratings of your vehicle and the driver assistance systems, because we've talked about this. ADAS performance is now part of the safety rating.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. Yeah.
It is a huge part of it now. So that is very, very important information the first week that you would want to lay that out. So
Right.
once they do that, Luke, where can they transition and continue building on that learning experience?
Yeah, after that first bit of, things you can look in the owner's manual and just kind of see some of those most important things.
Yeah.
And then I would say you actually kind of touched on it already, which is well, I guess I did, and then you reiterated it, which is before getting on the highway.
Hmm.
Um, the freeway is, especially, I mean, we live in Southern California, which is very densely populated, and
Right.
you know, maybe not every Southern California resident maybe treats speed limits like the Bible,
Yeah,
So, you know,
there's those.
yeah, there's some out there, but regardless of any of that, it's in such a densely populated area. Of freeways are, especially the major freeways, those are intentionally higher stakes environments. Things are moving
Right.
faster. There's just more variables, and then of course that introduces things like semi trucks and so on.
Hmm.
Um, so, like you had mentioned, low stakes environment like city streets,
Yeah.
and especially if you find like a more industrial area, the roads can get really long, and like the roads can have speed limits of like 55 miles an hour, which is essentially
Mhm.
getting up to freeway speeds, but it's just like a road, right?
Right.
There's not on ramps and off ramps and all the freeway stuff, and they're generally less crowded because they're more industrial areas, and that can be a good place to find a road like that that's long and not too busy that has a lane line, and then try out lane keep assist,
Hmm. Hmm.
and try out things like that, and then let the system alert you as you drive. Just now that you know these features are here, let it alert you.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean, I'm not saying to be, I'm be quite clear about this. I'm not saying drive unsafely to make the car have to drive safely for you.
Right.
That's not the way to test out safety features, is to not, oh, I'm going to drive right towards this innocent other driver
We're
and
not.
hope the vehicle stops me.
Yeah.
It's that's
No.
Again, that's an extreme example, but again, don't intentionally drive unsafe to like put it all on the car to drive safely for you. Again, usage responsibility.
Exactly.
So, but let the system alert you, and don't turn off the alerts before you understand what is triggering them.
Exactly.
And then the other big thing I would say about this is in kind of, I would say, maybe you had the car for 2 to 3 weeks now. Seek out education in the form of obviously a lot of information online. There's a lot of stuff on a lot of different platforms, especially ours. We've had a lot of deep dives on the specific workings of individual safety features,
Hmm.
and um, and that can be really important.
Thing like you said,
It can be what?
a community. Make it a community. Seek out talk to other drivers.
I was going to use exactly that. That's why we podcast. She knew
Yeah.
exactly what I was. She knew what I was going to say. I was
Yep.
going to say, I've brought this up in a previous episode. Make learning a community effort,
Hmm.
and because doing that, you're getting to talk to other people who are experiencing it in real life.
Exactly.
Not someone who's doing a car review maybe the car was provided to them by the automaker and they cherry picked an exact car. Like, I don't, there's just more unknown variables that way. But talk to friends, talk to family who have newer cars similar, and make learning a community effort in that kind of 2 to 3 week mark. Oh, I had this happen. Have you had this happen? Oh yeah. Oh, what made yours go off? Oh, mine. When I was doing this, mine alerted me, but it didn't alert me in this other situation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Especially if
that,
it's a different brand, because
mhm.
you can have some really interesting
Yeah,
conversations about driver assistance systems across brands.
exactly. That has come up with me a lot. I've had a lot of people I've worked with in my other line of work as a product
Yeah,
specialist elsewhere, that people talk about, and I've mentioned this before. People talk about have an aversion to turning on certain features because of a previous experience with a different brand that like behaved a little differently.
exactly. Exactly. That builds the conversation. And then at the end, once you round that off, if we're talking about the, like, this is like a first, 30-day framework, round it off with building the right habits.
Oh
You
yeah.
have to build the right habits. And so, just like, when you were taught, you get in the car, what are you going to do? Look at your mirrors. You set your mirrors, right? Oh, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, I would personally make and I actually do make a point of this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but when I'm showing someone a new car, I intentionally make a point of this. I don't have them actually when I show, oh, here's how your seat and mirrors adjust, and
Mm-hmm.
here's how you do the memory seat thing where you can program your seat position, all that stuff. There's a step that people will, I'm sure, do this, but I think it's actually more important first, even when you're not moving, before doing that, which is seatbelt, because
Yes.
seatbelt restricts your movement. Now, obviously, sitting still in a safe environment, the seatbelt seems to be doing nothing for you.
Right.
However, in the back of your mind, subconsciously, just having that on your body,
Right.
your mind knows that now your movement's restricted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is going to put you more in the position where you are going to adjust your mirrors. Whereas
Correct.
if you don't have that, it might be like I saw a lot of ladies I work with, they'll still have a purse on their lap or something, or
Mm-hmm.
they'll they won't have fully seated themselves, but no one puts a seatbelt on not fully seated in a car. So
Exactly.
I would just my amending of that would just be seatbelt first, then mirrors and all that stuff.
That's right. And add the ADAS features. So
Yes.
if they are
Yeah,
on,
have that be part of the routine. Exactly.
just add it to the routine. And guess what? It needs to be added. You
Mhm.
need to add it to the routine, and that is the way you will build the right habits to know if your systems are working, if one is not turning on or engaged. And then also, if you disengage a feature, because we talked about that in the last episode, for whatever situation it is, it could be construction and you have to turn the system off. Make it a habit to re-engage it when the
Yeah.
conditions change. So you re-engage your system. And then, just like we said, share what you learned with family and friends, because you'd be surprised when you start talking about vehicle technologies, how it sparks a conversation and everyone can relate to your pain point. I'm telling you, everybody
Mhm.
can relate to the learning curve that we are talking about right now of getting into a vehicle equipped with driver assistance systems and having minimal training, we are all in the same seat. And so
Yep.
I'm telling you, if you start talking to people, they will tell you about it.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's where, again, making it a that's why I forget what episode it was. It was several ago now,
Yeah.
but that's why I mentioned make learning a community effort, because I guess you could apply that to really almost anything in life, but
Right.
especially with our subject, with our subject matter, yeah, make it a community effort, because everyone talking about it, that's where learning really happens.
Yeah.
And um and I will say, just we have an entire past episode on this, so won't get into this now, but just so everyone knows, and as you especially know, Lisa,
Yeah.
everything Lisa just said about the importance of building this into like a good, safe habit of
Mhm,
driving the car,
mhm.
all this has an entire another layer of gravity and importance on it when you're talking about a parent driving a car with a kid.
That's right.
We have an entire Features First
Absolutely.
episode all on drivers who are parents. So check that out for more, obviously. But again, that makes it all the more important. And speaking of it being a community effort, we actually had one of our listeners ask us about this kind of thing,
What's
about
the name?
yeah, exactly, what's the best way to learn. And this has been one of the best things about Features Talk, is it's given us a way to hear from and speak with a lot of people that we don't know personally, of course, but that are really living proof of we're all in the same boat.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes.
or actually we're all in the same software defined vehicle,
Right.
not all in the same boat.
Exactly.
That needs to be features first next mission. All in the same boat. That we need.
That's
We
right.
need. That needs to be removed from the lexicon. It now needs to be we're all in the same software defined
That's
vehicle.
right. We're all in the same.
It's it's gonna roll right off the tongue for everyone.
Oh my goodness.
So, but it's, I mean, listen, we have this segment of our podcast called Listener Lane, and it's a perfect example of we're all in this together. And so we have questions and feedback from our community, and we had someone actually ask us to kind of conclude this mini series. They said, "Is there a way to do a features audit without going back to the dealership?"
Oh
And
yeah, that's
and
a
I
good
like,
question.
yeah, and I like I like that this came in, and I read that, and my first thought was, why would you not want to go back to a car dealership, which is everyone's favorite place? But and
I digress. I will not go down. I will not take the bait.
right, yeah, and so I understand where this.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
understand where that comes from, and so, but like that's a really important thing is that what if maybe there wasn't time to do an entire
Right.
presentation? And to be honest, often in day-to-day operations of a dealership, there seldom is time.
Correct.
There very seldom is time to go over
Yeah.
it all properly. And so, how do you do a features audit without going back to the dealership? They didn't specify exactly, but I have to assume features audit just means how do I then how do I reference what exactly I have, how it works, and everything like that.
Yeah.
And this does kind of go back to what we mentioned with our general framework suggestion of how to go about using one of these,
Yeah.
being a both informed and augmented driver.
That's right.
And one of the big ones is the owner's manual, and because it will lay out what is specific features your car has and your trim. If your car has a particular trim level, has a particular package that might add some more of these features, not just what's possible across the entire model line. The owner's manual is going to be more specific to yours. And on that note, one thing that I would recommend looking at, this has become much more of a new car thing. I mean, like, we're recording this in 2026. This is like a 2025 model year, 2026 model year, and we're starting getting to 2027 models now. But a lot of cars, or not a lot, but some that I've seen that I work with regularly are actually not shipping with printed owner's manuals anymore.
No, they're not. No,
yeah. And so
that's where we're going. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, they're obviously available online. But what I would recommend is a lot of these vehicles actually have their owner's manual in their infotainment system. The cars that I work with a lot, you can actually access the owner's manual there, and you can search by keyword, look at animations, and it sorts it all by different topics, which I honestly think makes it easier than going through the whole printed thing. And you're accessing it while sitting in the car right there anyway.
Exactly. So, love that, Luke. Love that.
So I would say owner's manual for sure.
Yeah.
It's available online, and if you wanted to print out that whole thing, then you would have a printed version of it. But look for versions of a digital owner's manual. Some cars, they don't have it all in the infotainment system. Sometimes it's a QR code, but even that's great because then it becomes an interactive thing on here. So
exactly.
In addition to that, I would call back a couple of things that Lisa, you've mentioned many times, which is NHTSA.gov, which is NHTSA.gov, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So NHTSA's Driver Assistance Technologies page, they have a page all dedicated to this. It breaks down what each system is actually designed to do, and it's every bit as important. It's not every bit as important, I would say, is what it's not designed to do.
Right.
So they have a pretty clear delineation of here's what a feature can do and or should do, here's what it can't do, and here's where maybe it's not suitable to be used.
Right.
So NHTSA.gov, NHTSA.gov is a good one. We have these like posted in the when the episodes go up. But the other one that's really good is it's called mycardoeswhat.org.
I love that one. It's a really cool site. It really is. They've done a lot with that site. They even have some games on there, some virtual reality games that you can, some simulations actually that you can get into. It does lead you, when you want to get specific to your vehicle, it will lead you back to the OEM website. So if that's really what you're trying to look for, then the manual, that digital copy, or like Luke just said, on the infotainment screen, It's all there, and they are changing that user experience now. They're changing that user experience of how you can locate this, because you need to be able to locate it easy, and then it needs to be understood. That's the other part that they're trying to work on right now too.
Yep. I will also say, just so that it is immortalized on the record from Features First officially, don't access this owner's manual if you're not in park. Okay?
Please.
Don't try accessing this while driving. Just don't.
No. And you know what? Some cars, that have the information in the infotainment screen, it won't even pull it up because
That's
you're
true. They were
so,
right.
yeah.
That info is often restricted, but also just from us to you, don't
That's
attempt to don't do this while driving.
That's right. Please and thank you.
Yeah. For all of us on the road who are trying to be informed and augmented drivers, please.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Well, we are 4 episodes in, right? So we covered the handover gap, the over-reliance trap, the avoidance problem, and now we talked about the merge between the informed driver and the augmented driver. And here is what I want you to take from this series. The technology in your vehicles is not designed to replace you. I want to say that again. It is not designed to replace you. These are driver assistance systems. It is designed to work with you when you understand it, when you trust it appropriately, and when you show up fully present every time you drive. That is your responsibility. And that is the learning curve that nobody is talking about. But guess what? We just did. We talked about it. And now you can walk away with a framework, understanding, how do I begin today? What can I do today that can move me forward in that? And so if this series has changed how you think about the vehicle you drive, make sure you share it with someone, pass it on to a new car owner. If you are in the industry, if you are one of our fleet partners, pass this on to a fellow manager. If you have a teen driver, pass it on to a parent, because we are trying to close that gap, and you can help us close that gap by one informed driver at a time. Don't forget to subscribe to the Features Talk podcast on YouTube and follow us on LinkedIn. And until next time, drive safely. See you guys.